When you create a job application form, one of the most important elements is to make sure you ask candidates the right kinds of questions. Now, how do you do that? We have a number of recommendations for you to ensure that you ask the kind of questions that allow you to quickly filter the type of candidates that are most suitable for your job opening. So, our first recommendation is that you think about shortlisting. Do not yet think about final recruitment for your job opening. That means that the goal of this initial job application form is for you to find out who are the top 10% of your candidates and to continue with them in the recruitment process. You should have additional interviews or other selection tools to find the final candidate. But your initial questions are not about finding the final candidate. They are really about filtering out those that are shortlisted and that you should invite for an interview. Secondly, we recommend that you think about what is the next step once you have received job applications. You will, one way or another, screen the candidates that have applied for the job. What are the parameters that you use to screen the candidates? What are the questions you ask within your team to find out which are the most suitable candidates? Those are the kinds of questions you should be asking your candidates. If there are questions that you tend to ask, but they are not used in the actual screening of candidates, you should really consider not asking those questions to save yourself and the candidates time in the recruitment process. Thirdly, make sure that most of the questions are closed questions, because those are the kinds of questions you can most easily filter. They allow you to make an easy list with those that are ranked in the order that you specify. Open questions, on the other hand, would force you to have a lengthier review and a more manual read-through of the answers given by the candidates. And again, remember that you can ask additional questions in the interview or in your follow-up questions once you have identified the most suitable candidates. You're always looking at shortlisting candidates when you ask questions on a job application form. So let's have a look what you can do in practice when you define questions. When you have a job application form, one of your most relevant elements when defining questions is actually your job profile. In your job profile, you should define an overview of the position and you should explain to the candidate what you're looking for. In a good job profile, you should also include a candidate profile or a list of requirements, depending on how you put it. But somewhere in there should be a list of what matters to you. The clearer this list, the better it is for the candidate to make sure that they comply with those requirements. But at the same time, this is exactly what you can use when you create your questions. So let's have a look. As you can see, we have a long list here of elements that are important in the candidate's profile. You should have a look to inform yourself which of those questions which of those points can be turned into questions. And on the other hand, which of those points are better asked in a follow-up interview. If you look at the first point, where we look at a certification that is required, that is an excellent item that can be turned into a question. So we can simply ask the candidate in the questions overview about whether or not they have this job requirement. If we add a question, we could write our own question and we could transform that kind of requirement into a specific question. We make it a multiple choice question. And in this case, we could have multiple answers and we enter all the different options that we would like to screen for. It is also recommended that you add one last option, which is for people that do not have any certification, so that later on you could also filter those that have answered none in this question, and you could potentially remove them from your list of shortlisted candidates. So this is a quick example, but you can go back and have a look at all the different points. And for instance, when looking for someone with a certain number of years of experience, you can ask the question, how many years of experience do you have in this specific position? Similarly, if you need experience of a very specific type, add that as an additional question. If we look at university degree requirements, you could ask the candidate by configuring the education settings for their entire education history. But if this is all that really matters to you, then we recommend you remove the general education history questions and you simply add a separate question where you ask, do you have a university degree in accounting or finance? Yes or no? And this will allow you to filter for that specific requirement only. Now, if there are questions in there that sound harder and more subjective to answer, then leave those questions out and make sure you ask those in the follow-up interview. Making sure that you ask questions in a way where people can select from a drop-down or enter a number is the most suitable way to make sure that you can later on filter for those parameters.